Welcome to American Heritage School. We are delighted that you've joined us this afternoon for our 4th grade devotional. Thank you for being with us. Children, make sure that you can see your moms and dads. Do you want to give them a wave or thumbs up? Or a kiss? Or then a kiss? We're grateful that you are all here joining us today. We are so grateful too for the work that has happened behind the scenes at home with you as you've helped the children prepare their lives. I especially want to thank our teachers who are amazing. They work behind the scenes as well. Not many get to see the many hours that they put in to make this kind of devotional take place. So I'd like to give them a very special thank you. To Mrs. Donna Patton on the piano, Mrs. Artisan here with the music, we've got Mrs. Gorell, Mrs. Arnold, Mrs. Pugh, and also Mrs. Packer up top, and as well as Mrs. Carmen. I think she's here somewhere. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Alright, we are live streaming this devotional this afternoon, so I'd like to welcome all of those who are online as well. We're grateful that you could join us today. Just a few reminders for you today. Please remember to turn off your cell phones so that they don't disturb you, so that you can really enjoy the devotional today. If your little ones start to cry, if you wouldn't mind taking them out for a quick settle moment and then come back in. Because this is a devotional, we ask that you hold your applause until the very end, and then we will applause with grand gesture. We will be doing the opening prayer as well as the pledge, and then we ask that you please stay standing after the pledge so that you can join us as the children, and you're welcome to sing with us our school song. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Kristen Sider, if you could come forward. Where are you, Kristen? Oh, right here, next to me. And then Jack Bureau. Jack, where are you? Thank you, Jack. Alright, Kristen will give the opening prayer, and then our flag is over there for the pledge, and then we'll stay standing for our school song. Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for how many blessings. Please bless that we will do good on this road, and we won't get mixed up with our hearts. And please bless that we will listen to Mrs. Austin and what she tells us. And please bless that we will have fun with this in the name of Jesus Christ. Honor one nation under God, understand.
Republic for which it stands, one nation under God.
Grade Devotional at American Heritage School. The fourth grade studied the Book of Mormon, the life of Brigham Young, the pioneers, and modern-day prophets. Studying these helps us develop necessary characteristics to live what we believe.
As we look at our school building, we can see many of these characteristics displayed over each entrance of the school. The stories we study have strengthened our beliefs of these fundamental virtues. These displayed words make a reference to a different kind of wisdom, a kind of wisdom sometimes forgotten. We are reminded daily that we need these Christ-centered attributes in our lives.
President Gordon B. declared, "It is good to look upon them. It is good to look to the past and gain appreciation for the present and respect for the future. It is good to look upon the virtues of those who have gone before to gain strength for the life ahead."
We would like to be expanding on this today by sharing examples from the Book of Mormon, the pioneers, and the words of our prophet. Incorporating these virtues into our lives gives us the opportunity to be what we believe.
first step towards becoming what we believe. To understand, to be humble is to recognize gratefully our dependence on the Lord. To understand that we have constant need for His support.
This To the story of my ancestor who came to the United States from Wales. Thomas Lloyd Williams married Elizabeth Rowlands. They were both honest and hardworking people. They heard about the church, were baptized, and left Wales with their firstborn son, Thomas Williams in 1855. They sailed from Liverpool on the ship in Chimborazo. It took them 5 weeks to cross the Atlantic Ocean and landed in Philadelphia. They moved on to Then they moved to Mormon Grove. Where they camped 6 weeks and made preparations for the trip west. Their faith and humility inspired them to seek a better life in America. They reached Salt Lake. They arrived in Salt Lake City on October of 1855. After reaching Salt Lake, they moved on to Ogden, where they lived in a one-room log cabin. Thomas Williams had been a miller in Wales, so he started working at one car flour mill. Thomas Williams later built a house directly across from the mill. He and his wife Elizabeth had 11 children that were all born in that house, with the exception of the oldest son. Thomas lived a humble life dedicated to the Lord until he passed away in 1881.
My great-great-great-great-grandfather Jonathan Eaton was known throughout his life for his strong healing hands. This story is told years later by his nephew, Farmer Esplin. Uncle Alvin and Jonathan were hauling manure off the big corral in Moccasin, Arizona. The manure had been piled really high on the wagon bed, and several of his children got on top of the load to ride out to the field where they would dump it. The gates of the corral had a long pole running across the bottom, from gatepost to gatepost, to keep pigs and lambs from trying to escape. As the front wheels of the wagon ran over this pole, I started to slide down the manure pile. I was scared, but that was the last thing I remember. They say the back wheel of the wagon smashed my head flat, and they thought I was gone for sure. Uncle Jonathan took my head in his hands and between his knees, and with leg and arm strength, he pressed my head out right again. He pressed it until he felt the bones go back into place. Then he and Uncle Alvin anointed me with oil and administered to me. I still have a scar running from the back of my head to my left ear as covered by my hair. The mark left by the wagon wheel when it smashed my head. I know if it hadn't been for Uncle Jonathan and the Lord, I wouldn't be here today. Because of his humility and dedication to the Lord, Uncle Jonathan helped to save my life.
Humility is an acknowledgement that we know that our talents and abilities are a gift from God. It's not a sign of weakness, timidity, or fear. It is an indication that we know where true strength lies. We can be vulnerable and fearless. We can be vulnerable and courageous.
To be humble is to be teachable, and we find it is written. The ambassador often they got stronger and stronger in their humility, and firmer and firmer in the faith of Christ, unto the filling of their souls with joy and consolation, even to the purifying of their sanctification. Yea, their sanctification cometh because they yield their hearts unto God. Many Benjamin's house were natural men to the enemy to God, and has been from and will be there to unto unless to those temptations of the Holy Spirit and they come as
As we study the life of Brigham Young, we have learned what it means to be truly humble. Brigham, who is also known as the Lion of the Lord, reflected his character and his humility in all aspects. The story is told of an encounter between the prophet Joseph Smith and Brigham Young. In the presence of a rather large group of brethren, the prophet severely chastised Brother Brigham for his abandoning his deed. Every month, someone sent waited to see what Brigham's response would be. After all, Brigham was no shrinking violet by any means. Brigham slowly rose to his feet and simply bowed his head and said, "Joseph, what do you want me to do?" The story goes that Joseph saw me, ran from the podium, threw his arms around Brigham, and said, "You passed, Brother Brigham, you passed."
The sermon started to the Apostle Paul taught that faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things which are not seen. Alma made a similar statement. If you have faith, you hope for things which are not seen, which are true.
The early pioneers knew this and lived it completely. Story after story have been told about the faithfulness of their pioneers. Here are a few examples of dedicated pioneers who served daily and boldly faced such tremendous obstacles.
13 members of the Willet Company who perished from cold, exhaustion, and starvation are buried in a common grave at Rockford Hollow. 2 of those buried at Rockford Hollow were heroic children of tender years. Bodil Munson, age 9 from Denmark, and James Kirkwood, age 11 from Scotland. Bodil was assigned to care for some small children as they held caregivers. She was found when she arrived at camp. She must have been sent to gather firewood. She was found frozen to death, laying in the glue of her handcart, clutching flowers.
James Kirkwood was from Glasgow, Scotland. On the trip west, he was accompanied by his widowed mother and 3 brothers. One of them, Thomas, was 19 and crippled and had to ride in the handcart. James's primary responsibility on the trip was to take care of the little boy, brother Joseph, while his mother and mother's brother Robbie pulled the cart. As they climbed Robbie lived, it was snowing and there was they were really cold and fun. It took the whole company 27 hours to travel 15 miles. Little Joseph had 2 where to walk. James, the older brother, and George Richmond to carry him. Left behind the main group, little Joseph made the race slowly again. When the 2 arrived at the fire site, James had been so gratefully carried out his task, collapsed and died in his order of exertion.
Former prophet Pastor Russell Nelson used these words regardless of the time and place in which the saints meet.
All faithful members of the church may receive their just reward. All are theirs, and whether life or death, or things present or things to come, all are theirs in their grace and Christ.
President Nelson also taught, "Now, my dear brothers and sisters, it takes persistent, rigorous spiritual work to repent and to put off the natural man through the atonement of Jesus Christ."
Written by Eliza R. Snow soon after leaving Nauvoo in the winter of 1846, the following poem describes the faithfulness of the pioneers. Lo, a mighty host of Jacob, tented on the western shore of the noble Mississippi, which they had been crossing o'er. At the last days dawn of winter, bound with frost and wrapped in snow, hark, the sound is onward, onward, camp of Israel, rise and go.
Another example of great faith is found in the prophet Levi, when he chose to continue on in his quest of following the command of the Lord by leading the breastplates. Although he was beaten by his brothers for pretending for that is just what he did, having faith for loving Heavenly Father who would provide the way.
of deity and ought to be manifested by those who aspire to be the sons of God. A man filled with love of God is not content blessing his family alone, but urges the behold, anxious to bless the whole human race. One morning, while the prophet Joseph Smith was visiting with a group of men around his house in Auburn, a man came up and reported that the house of a poor brother who lived some distance from the town had burned down that night before. All the men said they felt sorry for the man, but the prophet put his hand into his pocket, took out some money, and said, I feel sorry for this brother to the amount of $5. How much do you feel sorry? Joseph Smith showed charity in his actions because of who he was. In General Conference, President Monsignor's counsel, I am confident that there in the sphere of influence those who are lonely, those who are ill, and those who feel discouraged. Ours is an opportunity to have them lift their spirits.
He continued, the Savior brought hope to the hopeless and strength to the weak. He healed the sick, he caused the lame to walk, the blind to see, the deaf to hear. He even raised the dead to life. Throughout his ministry, he reached out in charity to any in need. As we emulate his example, we will bless lives and bring our own.
Charity is refusing to take advantage of another's weakness and being willing to give someone users. Charity is expecting the best of each other. Charity, being the pure love of Christ, is characterized as selfless and self-sacrifice, emanating from a pure heart, a good conscience, and faith. Thus, more than an act, charity is an attitude, a state of heart and mind, that accompanies one's words unconditional. The prophet Brigham Young encouraged us to serve the Lord and try not to find fault with each other. Live so that you will not have any fault to find with yourselves, and never find the fault of your brother. For each person has a life it is unto intended. Continue. The Lord will bless that confess full of charity, kindness, and good works. President Thomas S. Robinson reminded us of this when he stated, I consider charity of the pure love of Christ to be the opposite of criticism and judgment. I do not at this moment have in mind a belief of this suffering for the giving of our substance. That, of course, is necessary and proper. Tonight, however, I have in mind the charity that manifests itself when we are tolerant to others and lenient to their actions, the kind of charity that forgives, the kind of charity that is patient. President Watson continued, I have in mind the charity that impels us to be sympathetic, compassionate, and merciful, not only in times of sickness and affliction and distress, but also in times of weakness or error on the parts of others. This means that as we have charity, it will encompass in everything we do and say. It will be felt and seen in all of our actions. We will treat others in kindness no matter what they look and sound like, knowing that we are following in the example of our Savior, as he loved all those he saw. Caroline Reeder was a part of the William Car Company. She was 17 and the sister of my 5th great-grandfather, Robert. Their mother had died when Caroline was a newborn, and their father had died on the trail just past Portland. 2 weeks later, Caroline Reeder crossed through the veil to be with her parents. Caroline is an example of charity. Her nieces thought of her as a great friend. They remember with fondness how she encouraged and helped and sang with them along the way. Her last act of kindness was to gather wood for the company on the cold night of October 14th, 1856. My grandfather wrote of his sister, nights were getting colder, and some would sit down by the roadside and die. My sister Caroline, 17 years old, after traveling all day and seeing the camp being made for her night, took off her apron to tie some sagebrush to bring into camp. She sat down leaning on her bundle, exhausted. They found her chilled and dying and brought her into camp. She died without gaining consciousness. She too was placed in an unmarked grave. When I was 6 years old, my family went to Lily Meadow. On that visit, my parents felt prompted to go to the top of Rocky Ridge. There we found a list of names, Caroline Reeder among them. It must have been there, near the Sweetwater River, Caroline was buried. I want to be like my Aunt Caroline. My current young bride can encourage and help in even single person along the way.
gathered to hear Elder John Taylor speak. Before the meeting began, Elder Taylor had been warned by some church members that some men had tar and feathers ready and boasted that they would dress him in the tar and feathers if he undertook to preach.
Undaunted, Elder Taylor replied that he had made up his mind to speak. Elder Taylor began by reminding the crowd that he now stood among men whose father's platform obtained the greatest blessing ever conferred upon the human family: the right to think, to speak, to write, and the right to worship God according to their own conscience, all sacred human rights, guaranteed by the American Constitution.
Then Elder Taylor boldly proclaimed,
I have been informed that you purpose to tar and feather me for my religious opinions. Is this what you have inherited from your fathers? Is this the blessing you purchased with your dear heart's blood? This is your liberty? If so, you now have a victim.
Here he tore open his vest and said,
Gentlemen, come on here with your tar and feathers. Your victim is ready. Come on, gentlemen, come on, I say, I am ready.
No one moved, no one spoke. John Taylor stood there, drawn to his full height, calm but defiant, the master of the situation.
After a pause of some moments, he continued his remarks and preached with great boldness and power for some 3 hours. After the meeting, the brethren insisted that the intention of the crowd had been to tar and feather for him, but they had been awed into silence by the boldness of Elder Taylor.
Because of John Taylor's courageous life, his long defense of the principles of the gospel, and his journalistic pursuit, he became known as the defender of faith and also became known as champion of liberty.
In his courage and faithfulness, we learn how to respond, how to be faithful, and we find how to become defenders of the faith and champions of righteousness ourselves.
So now the question awaits, and our life will answer. Will we be courageous enough to not be ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ? Will we stand as witnesses of God at all times and in all places, even unto death?
My 5th great-grandmother is Letitia Cheryl Warden. She was baptized when she was 16 in 1838, the same year the mobbing and persecution broke out. One night, they received word to get clean clothing to the men. They disguised themselves by wearing black capes and pulling a black cap over their head. They had to count the rows of corn so they knew which one to go down. As they saw a man as they were coming out with a coat collar turned up and a black cap pulled over his head. They thought it was one of the girls drew close together in fear. They thought it was one of the mob. You can imagine how frightened they were. The man spoke quietly, calling Sarah by name. They knew it was one of their men. He told the girls where to put the clothes, and he ran away quick so no attention would be seen. My grandmother had the courage to do what the Lord had asked of her.
Those who built this nation answered that question with our lives, as did the faithful early pioneers. Let us go forth and continue to build upon their examples with our lives.
Ready?
Self-government is fundamental in living in what we believe John Taylor reported. Some years ago, an author attempted to ask Joseph Smith how it was that he was enabled to govern so many people and preserve such perfect order and working at the same time that it is impossible for them to do anywhere else.
Mr. Smith replied, I teach them correct principles and they govern themselves. Each of our choices has a consequence. When we make choices that go against Heavenly Father's law, we have to deal with consequences that are oftentimes painful.
However, when we choose to follow Heavenly Father's plan, we are free from the sorrow caused by our poor choices. We are then able to learn and grow in a peaceful environment. So when we choose the right,
James Madison, who is often referred to as the father of the Constitution, stated, "We have staked the whole future of American civilization, not upon the powers of the government, far from it." He continued, "We stake the future of all of our political institutions upon the capacity that each and all of us will govern ourselves according to the 10 Commandments of God." Brigham Young agreed with James Madison when he said, "Individual self-government lies at the root of all true and effective government. Self-government is crucial for us as individuals as well as for our nation."
Brigham Young knew this and helped people learn about proper self-government at the top of Mormon pioneers.
The sixth step in our journey is virtue. The 1828 Webster's Dictionary says that virtue is one of goodness. It also says that virtue is nothing but voluntary recognition.
I don't think I'm trying to be virtuous. He said, "One who will God keep his commandments and do his will, and he will be a virtuous person."
The prophet Joseph Smith told us that happiness is the object and design of our existence. It will be in the end thereof if we pursue the path of righteousness. And this path is virtue, uprightness, holiness, faithfulness, and keeping all the commandments of God.
Sister Lynn Dalton reminded us that we needed to return to virtue. She explained the meaning of virtue in General Conference. Virtue is a pattern of thought and behavior based on high moral standards. It encompasses chastity and moral purity.
When we choose to be virtuous, we are blessed with happiness, because we remember in Doctrine and Covenants, section 82, verse 3, I, the Lord, am bound and ye do what I say, but when ye does not do what I say, ye shall have no promise.
Virtue in our purpose is we believe in being honest, true, chaste, benevolent, virtuous, and doing good to all men.
Indeed, when we say that we all have a national thought, we believe all things,
We hope all things,
we have endured many things.
and hope we are able to endure all things.
If there is anything virtuous, lovely, or of good hope or praise, we seek after these things.
The seventh step is industry. To the early Utah pioneers that were trying to build a community in the desert, industry means the difference between success and failure. Industry officially became the state motto on March 4th, 1959.
Industry is associated with the symbol of the beehive. The early pioneers had few material resources and therefore had to rely on their own industry to survive.
Industry appears on public state seal and the state flag. The beehive is the official emblem of Utah. Utahns relate the beehive to industry and the pioneer values of thrift and perseverance.
The beehive was chosen as an emblem for the temporary state of Deseret 1 year after the pioneers first came to the valley. It was kept on the seal state of Utah when Utah was King's State in 1886. Brigham Young knew the importance of industry and learning to work even in playtime. He said, "I believe in including children in responsibility. If little girls want dolls, shall they have them?" "Yes, but must they be taken to the dressmakers to be dressed?"
No, let the girls learn to cut and sew the clothing for the dolls. In a few years, they will know how to make a dress for self-storage.
He continued, "Let the little boys have tools, and let them make their
of sleds, little wagons, and when they grow up, they are acquainted with the use of tools and can build a carriage, a house, or anything else.
Here is a demanding leader, a harsh, disciplinarian, ruthless in his requirements, whose people are yet unbelievably loyal to him. Indeed, they felt so warmly toward him that in their diaries, letters, and reminiscences, they almost invariably refer to him not as President Young, nor as Governor Young, nor even as Brother Young, but as Brother Young.
Most of us tend to be inherently lazy. We'd rather loaf than work. A little play and a little loafing is good from time to time, but it is work that spells the difference of a life of being a man or young woman. It is work, he said, that provides the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the homes in which we live. The grades and training we receive, it is work that gives us a feeling of accomplishment, and it is work that allows us to feel that we are making a difference in the world.
Samuel Butler, a writer and artist, once remarked, "Every man's work is a portrait of himself." Today we have evidence of those who have been portraits of work and their descendants.
What I create
sister Lily went on it. When Lily was crossing the plain, sometimes he'd get to a burn. So he'd give the whip to his son and let him drive the team. Lily would then help others get across the ground. Then he'd run back to his team. I think it's a good example of history.
My fourth grade grandfather, Eno Chidi, was asked to build the first gristmill in Fairview, Utah by Brigham Young. Grist was a grain that can be ground to meal or flour. During a especially hard time when most people's crops failed, my great-grandfather put a barrel of meal on his porch for anyone to help themselves to without cost. Miraculously, the barrel never went empty. This is a good example of me to work hard and to himself.
After the pioneers drained the swamp on the shore of the Mississippi River, they built the city of Nauvoo. Here they taught their children how to work hard. They also had a school to attend.
Abraham Grant said all the knowledge in the world will not amount to anything unless we put that knowledge into practice.
And know that the saints by the gospel as taught in the book of Mormon and the Bible. Men were called to leave their families to go on missions to share their knowledge of the gospel. We too are preparing to become part of the 70,000 missionaries and use our knowledge to bless the lives of others.
And finally, these qualities led us to wisdom. This 1828 dictionary, no Webster describes wisdom as the right use or exercise of knowledge. It is not enough to have all knowledge. We must possess as much knowledge as we can and use it for good.
My fifth great grandfather, William Draper Jr., was born in Upper Canada in 1807. His parents were William Draper and Lydia Sutcliffe Draper. William states, in 1832, for the first time, I heard the gospel preached by Elder Miller. I heard the same gospel preached by Brigham Young and I believed it. I was baptized and ordained a priest under the hands of Brigham Young. I bore testimony, traveled and preached as circumstances permitted. I had the privilege of attending the theological school superintended by the prophet Joseph, for which I received much instruction preparatory to the endowment when the Kirtland Temple was finished. There, on the day of Pentecost, there was such an outpouring of the Spirit of the Lord that my pen is inadequate to write or my tongue to express it. But I'll hereby tell you that the Spirit was like a mighty rushing wind, filling the house, and many that were there spoke in tongues, had visions, saw angels, and prophesied, and had a rejoicing of times such as had not been known in this generation. Close quote. William had other spiritual experiences that helped him to be faithful to the end. Spiritual wisdom is a gift from God.
Although President Brigham Young only had 11 days of primary school, he never seeking the training both the things of the world and the wisdom of God. He never ceased learning from books, from the scriptures, and from revelations of the Lord. Brigham Young taught the saints to establish schools and to enlighten them. He said, "You might ask, when shall we cease to learn? I'll give you my opinion about it. Never, never."
In 1850, Brigham Young founded the University of Deseret, which later became the University of Utah. In 1875, he founded Academy in Provo, Utah, which later became Brigham Young University.
Brigham Young College at Elgin, Utah was established in 1877 to train teachers for schools throughout the Latter-day Saint settlements.
Consistent to this commitment to education, Brigham Young also maintained a family schoolhouse in which his children were taught principles of heaven and on earth. If we wish to become like Heavenly Father, we must grow continually in knowledge and wisdom.
My fifth great-grandfather, Augustus Snow, was a great missionary, opening Denmark to missionary work and colonizing southern Utah, in particular St. George. When he was a boy, he received the best education he could afford, because that's what his father Levi wanted for him. His mother's great-grandfather built the first schoolhouse in English America at his own expense. Levi Snow was usually the first parent to begin his load of wood and grain as payment for his children's school tuition. The children did not use blackboards or slates. The paper that was used was coarse, rough, brown sheets of paper which they wrote on with the goose quill served as a pen. There were judgment days when they darkened the room and a voice solemnly would say that Judgment Day had come. A whack of a ruler on the guilty people's hand or a bit of ear twisting was the punishment. When Erastus established schools in St. George, he made sure that the children were treated more kindly.
These characteristics are the foundation stones on sustainability have us built, and now they're the foundation stones on which we're continuing Utah's heritage.
We will now sing for you Utah State song as we so many people who grew up with this state as we remember us in the right place.
Thank you for helping and supporting us as we learn and gain knowledge, progressing toward becoming believers just as those we say.
And I pray on you said, miracles are not for the unbeliever, they are to console the saints, and to strengthen and confirm the faith of those who love, fear, and serve God. It's for us to do this in the Lord who requires our hands and we deserve it. Thank you.
What a blessing and what a privilege it has for us to be in the shadows of the temple and to be attending the fourth grade devotional today. Let's give them one more big round of applause. Thank you, children, for sharing with us those special stories and special moments. I know that in the hearts of these children, these words that they have learned and memorized today will be forever. And they'll remember these lines as they listen to next year's fourth graders come and do their assemblies, their devotional as well. What a privilege. We're so grateful to you for all the work that you've put in. I also want to thank our tech crew with Mr. Clark and some of his students, Nathan Zimmerman especially, who's been running the live stream camera. I'm truly grateful for you, Nathan, so thank you so much. Let's give him a big round of applause. We will finish our devotional this afternoon with a closing prayer from Logan Templeman. And thank you again for being with us at American Heritage today. Logan?
Dear gracious Heavenly Father,
and please bless us and be kind to one another. And I say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ.
I'm never going to say my name, but this is like walking. So what do you mean? Walk down, what happened? I was so good, dude. But you just go to the lag on usually 30 seconds to a minute. Good job.